I have some very interesting ideas on how education has got to change. There's constant discussion on how we introduce technology into the classroom. I'm reminded of something a while back that it took 15 years for the overhead projector to move from the bowling alley to the classroom. And this is the same kind of thing that is happening. We do not need to bring technology into the classroom. We need to bring education into the 21st century technology. It should be immersed in it. It should be part of it. And how do I do that? How did we learn to talk and listen? Really, we were not taught. People taught us words, they taught us polite forms, but for the most part, we learned to speak and listen because that's what everybody did, learn to speak and listen. Think about a preschool child. They are using iPads, iPhones, game books. There's a wonderful, I think it's on YouTube, about a 2 or 3-year-old who is shown a magazine and is trying to push it and make it go, and he's frustrated because the pictures didn't move. But here they are communicating, well, not communicating yet, but how far can texting be from these kids? They'll be sending iPhones, and they go to school, and the first thing we do is put a pencil in their hand. Take all of the tools they had been using in the 21st century away from them and teach them to work with paper and pencil. We spend first 4 years of education at least teaching them the history of how it used to be done in the 19th century. Somehow we think that the basics of the 19th century are the basics of the 21st century, and they are not. Learning to use a pencil, it's nice, but if we started a child with keyboard and screen, and they started to learn to read and write the way they learned to speak and listen, there would be no reading disability, or at least no more than there is speaking disability. And what would we be giving up? And if the truth be known, the only thing we'd be giving up is handwriting. Everything else stays the same. Except that when a child writes something on a keyboard and screen, it's easy to correct it, make changes. All we're doing is encouraging them to perfect their writing. Also, writing is painful. A good example of that. Teacher, as punishment, Johnny, I want you to write 100 times, I will be a good boy. Teacher at lunchroom to the other teachers, gee, I don't understand why they don't like to write. You use it as punishment and you don't understand? Yes. Back in the 19th century, higher mathematics depended upon your ability to deal with arithmetic. If you couldn't compute, you couldn't be involved in higher mathematics. And so it was the basics. Also notice that arithmetic is lower mathematics. Today, that's not true. Arithmetic is totally automated now. We do not need it in the same way we need it. Do children have to be able to compute? Absolutely. And you teach them computation separate from mathematics. Teach mathematics on a spreadsheet where the arithmetic is invisible. They'll never know the concepts if they don't do the arithmetic. If a child knows that if a car goes 10 miles an hour and goes for 2 hours, the total distance is going to be 20 miles. If a child understands that, they have the concept. If now I ask, if a car goes for 16.359 hours at 86.25 miles per hour, they're not learning anything new about the concept. All they're doing is practicing arithmetic. I want to separate arithmetic from math or computation. And probably I would encourage approximation, estimation, rather than exact numbers, because if we need exact numbers doing our taxes, we are not going to hire an accountant because they're good in mental arithmetic. We're going to hire them because they have the concepts and they don't have to worry about it. But if we're all out in a hotel or a restaurant and we have to give a tip, yeah, we want to be able to give the 15 or 20%, but not to the nearest penny. A good estimation is what we need. And if we encourage estimation in students and give them practice on estimation, it would be much more practical than repeating the multiplication test. You're making the test do much more than it's capable of doing. When I went to college to get into a moderately advanced school, you get 600 on the board, you're fine. So I studied to get that. I could have studied to get more, but I went to graduate school. I was on the 98th percentile. It means nothing. Now, what would I replace tests with? We used to have something a while back called authentic assessment. Evaluate a student on what they can do, not how they score on a test. We stopped doing that because we don't trust our teachers. Maybe it's time we start trusting our teachers again.